The cheapest way to a dream home is to build it yourself.
This is the exciting bit, seeing the first bit of dirt come out.
But can it really be done for less than £100,000?
If you think outside the box, you can build something extraordinary.
Architect Piers Taylor will push what's possible with their homes.
How about reconsidering the structure?
No, I like the structure.
While I, Kieran Long, will challenge them with fresh ideas on design. Interesting how you feel right now.
Yes.
And show them ingenious solutions possible in any home.
This is the kind of thing we want to do for our grandchildren.
And they needn't be expensive.
What do you reckon?
Oh, I'm really impressed.
Great.
That's two good ideas to come out with today, Piers.
Will all be pushed
I have to put my cards on the table now and say I hate the roof. I just hate it.
as the homes take shape.
We are risking all the money, then once it's gone, it's gone.
But some will turn low-cost self-builds into extraordinary homes.
It looks great.
Wow. This time, Jason and Riikka attempt to build a low-cost home with high ambition.
I thought the house we're building had a lot of glass, but wow.
This is all glass, isn't it? But is theirs even possible for 100K?
I saw these drawings. I would say that this would be about 450 grand.
It's the longest build we've ever followed. But will Jason's obsession with detail
2, 3, has to be millimetre perfect.
be his downfall?
I just can't believe this.
Jason and Riikka have lived in Torquay for 15 years,
Washing up as ever.
in 4 different old houses.
We've never really lived anywhere that I've felt completely at home.
It's never your house, is it? It's always someone else's house.
They run their own small travel business, and now that their 2 children have flown the nest, they've been searching for a place to build their dream home.
We don't need a big house, we don't need a fancy house, we just need a house that suits our needs.
As I was driving along, this was sort of midsummer, I just saw a tiny little sign sticking out of a bush and screeched to a halt, jumped out the car, and there it was, plot for sale.
Jason made a remarkable discovery.
This was all covered in ivy, wasn't it?
It's like you walked in here like, oh my God, it's so gorgeous. You know, it was just going into a storybook.
Up a forgotten set of winding stairs was a plot of 1/4 of an acre, with sea views across the town. They bought it for £92,000. After 3 years of planning applications and amendments, 6 tons of concrete is finally being pumped up to the site to form the foundations of their long-awaited dream home.
Right, get a shovel, Sam. Get plenty of shovels.
Even if it takes us 20 years, we will build a house on this plot.
Yay!
Whatever it takes, we'll do it because this is where we want to be. It's got to be my little bit of Finland.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited. Can't wait.
The beginning. Hey! First part of a very long journey. The rest of it's just going to be easy. Absolutely easy.
Building a house for less than £100,000 is extremely tough. Can these first-timers prove it can be done? As a journalist of architecture and design, I've spent most of my career searching out the very best buildings in the world. While architect Piers Taylor has a reputation for pushing the boundaries of what's possible to achieve on budgets large and small. This is our opportunity to see what Jason and Riikka are attempting to build. They're planning a 3-bedroom, single-storey modern house. They want a Scandinavian feel with clean lines and no clutter. At first, the entrance appears hidden. The front door only becomes clear once you enter a glass cube. On the other side is an enclosed galley-style kitchen with a dining area beyond. These both look onto an enclosed courtyard at the back of the plot. The main living area is a separate room at the front, which has a wall of fixed glass to make the most of the sea views. From here, a corridor leads to 2 guest bedrooms, a wet room, then on to a master bedroom, complete with a walk-in wardrobe. So, will this home be as successful as Jason and Riikka hope? Riikka's dream is about trying to create Scandinavian modern architecture. Seems to me that that's a quite unforgiving mode to take when you're trying to build extremely low cost. It looks way ambitious for £100,000.
This is a building that's been designed in isolation from the site. You open a gate on the street that effectively is their front door, but then you go up this long winding path, and then instead of the view being revealed to you, there's another layer of stuff to get into the house. Every bit of glass is sealed except for these narrow little conventional patio doors that don't belong.
When I think of the classic modernist idiom of building on a hillside, taking in a view, it's all about that surface just folding away and you're continuously living inside and outside and enjoying the landscape and having your house as part of that. This is totally denying them that opportunity.
They want something extraordinary. This isn't going to be it, but actually we can help them get it.
Jason and Riikka expect to finish their house in less than 12 months, and Jason is building the entire thing himself.
How you doing? Nice to meet you, Riikka.
Yes.
And Jason.
Pleased to meet you.
Cheers, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So, look at this.
Piers wants to start by saving them a lot of time and money on how people arrive at their home.
For me, this is an amazing house, an amazing site, and it is nothing like the house next door, where they have a very recognisable front door. This is the way into the building and the house. So this is the front door.
Yep.
And you'll buzz people in here,
Sure,
presumably.
Yep.
This is such an unusual and special way to arrive at a building. And then you do it all over again when you get here.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem to me to make sense.
Yeah, it's definitely food for thought.
Not taking advantage of the natural landscape of this site is completely at odds with the reason Jason and Riikka fell in love with the plot in the first place. Now, inside the building, Piers wants to interrogate the pair on more design decisions.
This entire area is an all-open plan, and the whole front of that bay is glass from floor to ceiling.
This will get potentially quite hot here in summer.
The whole front of the house, where all this glass potentially sits, is going to have a canopy over anyway. So the immediate direct sunlight is not going to penetrate through. What I'm planning on doing is, on this wall that separates the main lounge and the kitchen, I'm going to put a discrete air conditioning unit. Because there's so much glass in that area, we have an area of the house where, you know, we can cool that down as we need to.
Why wouldn't you design it so you didn't need an air conditioning unit? If I could do one thing, it would be try to persuade you not to use an air conditioning unit. I mean, the words go through me.
Yeah.
A first principle in designing a home is considering the movement of the sun. Building a new home in Britain that needs air conditioning is crazy, especially on a low-cost home. The complexity here is enormous.
I can tell you right now, if I saw these drawings and they were priced by contractor, I would say that this would be about £2 square metre, 450 grand. That's the lower end of domestic bespoke.
They have made a classic mistake of adding complexity to their design instead of taking it away. Piers must try and get them to simplify this building.
My first question, why do you need such a lot of devices to get you into the house? There's one wall that stops you seeing past there,
Sure.
There's another lobby, and then there's another lobby again, and then you're into the house. That seems to me to be quite complicated.
I think that's going to be a nice feature. I think it's going to be a very unusual feature, and I think especially at night we're going to do hopefully some quite sort of funky lighting system in there, perhaps from the floor up into the glass. That's not really so much part of an entrance to the house, more of a feature of the house.
Piers' first key suggestion would make the arrival at the building far more simple. Removing the glazed block from the outside makes it more understated and less gimmicky. Adding features like these costs thousands and takes time. The only thing they should be adding is flexibility.
You talk a lot about open plan, but here's a wall, Why wouldn't you actually just take that wall out? I guess I was trying to make this more open plan than it is. You're stuck at the back, and actually, you know, the view and aspect is that way. The fixed west-facing glass worries me. I want you to be able to use all of the site as easily as possible. Would you not want to be able to open up those ones?
It would be a nice feature.
That's where the sun, you know, comes in there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that'll be an amazing kind of sun trap to be able to really genuinely extend your living area out that way.
It's something that could be looked at.
The probing at every bit of this.
Yeah, sure.
It's a little bit uncomfortable in some ways, is essential really to interrogate every bit of the building.
Piers wants Jason and Riikka to reconsider the layout of the main living spaces and how they're connected. Making the building more open plan means it will be far more flexible to live in. It also means the view can be enjoyed whilst cooking. Their plans don't allow the big glass panels to open, and access is limited to 2 patio-style doors in the middle. Piers suggests they should change these for ones that slide back, that will allow the living area to spill out of the doors and make it more adaptable. But already 3 years into the planning of their home, getting this pair to make changes now will not be easy.
Unpicking is really hard, but they've got to do it to make this a really good building.
It's vital we show Jason and Riikka how simplicity is the secret to a successful home. I've managed to get access to one of the country's best homes to do it, Capel Manor House. It's one of the best examples in Britain of modernist architecture. These houses were all about trying to live with the surroundings, live with the garden, the foliage, the trees, the flowers and so on surrounding the site. Take away as many barriers as possible. In a way, this is one of the clearest examples you'll find in Britain, and it's Grade 2 star listed, real part of our heritage now. Modernism became the most important architectural style of the 20th century. It was brought to Britain by European migrants in the 1930s and 40s. The thing that strikes me is just how simple this building is. It's incredibly straightforward, just a rectangle of glass on a steel frame.
I thought the house we're building had a lot of glass, but wow.
This is all glass, is it? Modernist architects in the first half of the 20th century used new materials to reinvent what architecture could be. Steel, concrete and glass were often used to create strong geometric shapes. Michael Manser was a British pioneer who designed many great modernist houses during his long and distinguished career, including this one in 1971. Jason and Riikka could learn huge amounts from the simple flexibility on show here. This glass facade is just a single skin, and you go directly from the landscape inside the house. Why is your building so complicated to get into? Because I love this directness.
Our building, it can't be seen from anywhere. All there is this little gate by the road. And as you go up that gate, you twist and wind up a path. When you get to the top, all you can see really is a massive wall and a little doorway leading into the house. So it kind of keeps you guessing. So it's a very different concept to this house.
So you want that, like, sense of mystery?
Yeah, that sense of mystery.
It's a nice idea,
yeah.
But in a house this simple, everything becomes really clear. Whether your windows are big or small, take time to consider how you can make the most of them. If you get that right, your enjoyment of a space can be transformed. This is a house where views out onto the beautiful garden are constantly played with through changes of level and the inventive placement of furniture. The timber ceiling continues through to the overhang outside, and on the floor, one precisely laid tile floor runs across all boundaries. Investing time and money on these key elements has made this building feel larger, more simple, and brings the garden in as part of the experience of the interior. The current owners of this home love it so much that they commissioned a 21st century take on Manser's classic. They have had another single-storey, glass-fronted pavilion built within the grounds.
It's fantastic
It's so
design.
simple, isn't it? And clear the way it's designed.
As it's stunning. I think it's absolutely stunning.
With a zinc roof and poured concrete walls, architect Ewan Cameron has designed a sleek, modern relation. Views across the garden are uninterrupted. The bathrooms use opaque glass to maintain privacy. But it's the sliding doors opening straight onto the terrace from the bedroom that I want them to experience. It's a sunny day, and you sort of get up, walk straight out this beautiful facade, and you're into the terrace. 'Cause I love how here the floor material is the same. There's no threshold at all, the threshold's level. Imagine being in a room like this during the winter. You can really experience all of that.
You can be indoors, nice and snug and dry, but you can kind of still almost feel like you're exposed to the elements.
Riikka appears sold on the benefits of sliding glass, but Jason is still to be convinced. Very clever, isn't it? Because if you look over there, you see directly out into the garden with no frame at all. The glass for them is the critical component of the build. If they can get the glass right, it's going to be a fantastic place to live. If they get it wrong, there's a real risk that they'll just be in a kind of semi-goldfish bowl arrangement. They'll never be able to enjoy the outside and never be able to enjoy the potential of that fantastic location. So it really is important for them. It's been a long 10 months since Jason put the foundations in, and only now are the first signs of the structure starting to appear.
Perfect.
It's taken a while, but the blocks and steels that will form this modern home are now all on site.
This is a dream that I've harboured for a long time. When I was a little boy, I actually found out my dad, he'd actually done a very rare thing in those days. He'd bought the land and he'd bought the plans of a house he'd like to put on there, and then he hired the contractors in to do the work. It planted a seed all those years ago, and that stayed with me. As a child, I thought, this is our home. This truly is our home. No one else has ever lived here. This is our family home.
With his childhood dream becoming a reality, Jason is focusing on the build.
You're at 4-2. Good, good. It's looking good.
While Riikka looks after the family business, a travel company that promotes the UK as a holiday destination to Scandinavians.
I can't afford to take the train is too expensive. 3:40, I have to be in my car from Torquay to be in the office for about 8:15 in the morning. You know, I won't be home until midnight, gone midnight perhaps. It's not ideal, but it's what needs to be done. I wouldn't want to be in Jason's shoes. I can only imagine how stressful it is for him, because he knows that it's kind of up to him to get the house built.
Now at least 6 months behind schedule, winter is coming, and for Jason, his first self-build is just getting harder and harder.
Here we go again. I spend so long, so many sleepless nights planning all this stuff, but you just never know what's around the corner. With those steps, I sometimes wonder how many times in my life I'm going to be going up and down them, or how many times I will have gone up and down them. It's got to be a few thousand already.
And just when he needs to be on site the most, he can't even leave his rental flat.
I just went down on Monday morning. First concrete block I picked up with my back slightly twisted as I picked it, and that was it. Felt like I got shot in the back. Knew I'd put my back out, and that was that. So I'm just recuperating now and very annoyed about it.
It's the worst case scenario for any self-builder. With Jason injured, all works draw to a halt.
In an ideal world, we should have done this when we were in our late 20s, but who's got the money to do that?
Riikka has had enough of the daily commute and sleeping on friends' sofas, so has made the permanent move to London, staying on a houseboat.
I didn't get married not to spend time with my husband. It's kind of getting to me now, and I do miss him. I miss him so much, you know, so, yeah, it's not ideal.
It's January 2015, and Jason is back on site.
Here comes the rain.
But this time, he's not alone.
This year I probably am going to pay for more labour because I've achieved so much on my own, and now it's about speed. I need to get the house built, I need to get it finished. It's going to be all hands to the pump really to get it up and get it done.
Now the build can move forward, it'll soon be time to order the bespoke windows that will dominate the building. It's our last opportunity to convince Jason to choose panes that open rather than fixed ones, but also to find out if he's simplified the building.
Jason is about to spend £20,000, a fifth of his budget, on the glass. If he gets it wrong, it will be a nightmare for him. If they seal up this building, it'll be an environmental disaster. Jason.
Hello Piers, how you doing?
How you doing? Very well.
Good, long time no see.
Absolutely, yeah. Look at this. How's it all going?
Slowly, more slowly than I'd like.
And this is the wall, isn't it? That was going to be orange?
Yeah, that was going to be orange, and we were going to have the glass block on the entrance there.
Mm-hmm. Are you still doing that glass?
It's on hold at the moment.
Removing the glass cube from the outside is a massive win for this house. But on the inside, Jason is still intending to divide the kitchen from the main living space.
The main wall that we're planning is a wall here. It's not going to be the full length, it's only going to be about half the length of this area.
What does that wall do?
Just compartmentalises the kitchen, and it also gives us, in terms of using the other side of that wall, a lot more storage space in the kitchen as well.
Having found a plot blessed with an incredible view, Jason seems happy to lose it in favour of storage. He still seems to be prioritising the wrong things.
And where are you with the doors and windows?
We're either having solid glass throughout, or we're going to go for bifold.
How do you deal with solar gain? I mean, has it been environmentally modelled? Because the direct solar gain in here will be immense.
Probably will be, actually.
In an ideal world, wouldn't you open all of it? Wouldn't you just be able to kind of meander outside, you know, all the time? If this is sealed, I wonder whether you'll ever go out there.
Riikka was already sold on sliding glass. But has today's site visit from Piers helped finally convince Jason?
Do you reckon you're going to do this?
Makes perfect sense. A huge part of the house is glass. Having come this far, I couldn't bear them looking at a certain piece of glass or a door and going, not right.
It's really good to see Jason understand that his living area isn't just a small living room. It's actually part of the outside.
It's a decision that will be an enormous benefit to this building. Now Jason must press on with the order. But every calculation, measurement and detail must be right.
The stress he's under is enormous. He's done the measuring. They're custom made. They're very expensive. When they turn up, if they don't fit, there's only one person to blame.
From the earliest designs for this building, it was all about the glass. The momentous day of fitting has finally arrived. Jason has left nothing to chance.
We've actually taken 4 sets of measurements, so if they're wrong now, I'll give up.
The delivery is right on time, along with some challenging weather.
The wind is blowing at about 35 knots. Not exactly an ideal day for handling huge panes of glass. It's an awful lot of money balancing very high on a lorry. Right up against that one. Little bit. Right on the curb, yeah? Marvellous.
Jason and Riikka have spent £18,000 to buy the very best glass for the windows and doors they can afford.
Bit more this way.
19 enormous individual components of high-performance glass encased in sleek precision aluminium frames are craned through the sky. Jason can barely watch. As the bad weather closes in, Jason swiftly directs operations.
That is the back door over here.
With each window costing almost £1,000, it's critical everything is handled with the utmost care.
Oh, It's frame facing on the floor as well, isn't it?
Right.
With all the windows on site, stage 1 is complete, and the team can breathe a huge sigh of relief.
Oh, the window's gone.
A sudden gust of wind has sent a window crashing to the ground.
And it's on the frame.
With the corner of the casing damaged, the entire window must now be replaced.
Don't believe it. That's a grand's worth of windows. And a 3-month wait for a new one.
A critical £1,000 lost. But Jason must remain focused on the task in hand.
First one going in. At least I measured this one right.
But there appears to be a problem. Jason's measurements are perfect, but for a different type of frame.
They're 20mm difference, obviously, lugs 10mm each side. And I've measured that door over there from aluminium to aluminium, and you got 5mm each side.
Despite Jason's impeccable attention to detail, they don't fit.
It's like they've designed the windows to go really flush into something.
Yeah. Like we said, with maybe cladded or something, you know?
The windows sent from the supplier didn't have the edging strips Jason was expecting.
I just can't believe this. I absolutely can't believe it. The wooden part of the frame is actually going to be past the outer leaf of the building. There's nothing to actually render up to. The preparation, the checking, the double checking, the triple checking, it's madness. Just feel sick, absolutely sick. I couldn't have done any more, I couldn't have worked harder to get where we are. And for this just major cock-up is just a disaster. Ripping on corners, that's the issue.
This problem won't get resolved today. Jason has no option but to quickly protect the windows from the elements.
Grab that, you got it there?
And close the site.
You work so hard, you absolutely check, double check, triple check, everything's right. It's been one of the worst days of my life, if I'm honest.
It's the last thing the project needed. Piers has built his own home and is only too familiar with the pressure of self-builds and, crucially, how to solve problems. What solutions will he have that might help Jason to start seeing light at the end of the tunnel? Hi, Piers.
Hey, Kieran. How you
see
doing?
you.
Great
You're
to see
right.
you. Yeah, really well.
Poor Jason and Riikka. I mean, it's really a disastrous turn of events for Jason, and I feel for him so much. He's so careful, he spent so many years on his own on that site, and now this problem with the windows.
Jason, he expects to be able to control everything. Somehow it hasn't worked, it doesn't fit. Jason has his own battle to fight with the windows, but I still think there are things that we can do to help them. And the key thing is simplifying the construction, the stuff that he can do himself, self-finished materials and techniques that make the building simple to put together. And I'm really interested in that, because that's the language of contemporary buildings as well.
It's May 2016, well into the third year of this build. After closing the site for 2 months and waiting 3 months for new window casings, Jason and Riikka's home is finally watertight.
They're all in, they're all sealed, and they're looking fantastic. So, yeah, very, very pleased with those.
A solution has been found between the architect and the suppliers. Each window frame has been fitted with an edging strip. This has cost Jason more valuable time to fit, but luckily only a small material cost.
It hasn't done a lot for my back or my knees or my hips, but we're getting there.
With the windows all in, Jason can finally turn his attention to the interior.
We had the debate earlier in the year with Piers about this particular internal wall that we were having here, squaring off the kitchen, and I'm very pleased to say Piers was 100% correct, because I think if we would have put the wall in, it would have been an absolute disaster. We would have lost so much of the open plan and so much of the view from everywhere. So that was absolutely great. Really, really chuffed we did that.
This is a great win for simplicity in this modern house. It's now vital Piers and I help Jason and Riikka to make the most of the open plan space they will now have. Piers is back in Devon, looking for materials that could provide a stunning low-cost backdrop to the couple's Scandinavian interior.
I'm in a fish market in Brixham on the south coast near Torquay. I love places like this because they're really working places and they need to use materials that are really robust.
White, glossy plastic cladding is the material of choice in places like this. Wipe clean and hygienic, it's used in fish markets and commercial kitchens up and down the land.
Jason and Riikka talk about making a modern building, but a modern building isn't just a question of what colour you paint the wall. I think you could use this material to make a really super slick, super contemporary interior.
Piers has tracked down the firm who fitted out the fish market. Will Jason and Riikka be convinced to use it too?
So this might not look much, but this material is really versatile. Beautiful white gloss. So you can see that you could do your kitchen, you could do the walls, you could do the reveals. It's very, very versatile.
Yeah, that would make a phenomenal backing for the main island as well.
This would be great as an island. You can weld the seams, so you don't even see the seams.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay.
The attraction for me is that this banishes wet trades. Don't like plaster, don't like paint. You know, self-finished materials that go straight on and don't need any finishing, for me, are the future.
That looks great.
The million-dollar question, is it expensive?
It's about 24 quid a sheet.
Okay.
Right.
But doesn't need any finishing. Really hygienic, very durable, and effectively lasts forever.
But will a material used in a fish market really be what Jason and Riikka had in mind for their Scandinavian-inspired home? Back at the house, Piers is keen to see if the cladding could be used creatively in other areas.
If we're talking about using a material to bind the house together, I wonder where else you could use it. And I think this feels like a wet room.
Yes, it is.
It is.
And what's going on the walls in here?
The actual finish is undecided.
Could be white gloss.
Could be.
White gloss wet room. Everything white gloss.
Save a lot on tiles.
Exactly, that's my thinking.
Yeah, absolutely,
Save
yeah.
a lot on tiles.
What is best about this material is that it isn't just a finish. It's a really modern material that is able to be fixed with minimal mess, minimal fuss in a really time-efficient way. It's a very clever use of materials because it's something that Jason can do himself.
After a series of delays and injuries, the priority now for Jason has to be getting the house finished with minimal effort and cost.
Every day I see a big difference in the house. I've got to that stage where I'm kind of jumping out of bed instead of trying to drag myself out of bed.
Piers has given Jason a much-needed boost. Back in London, Riikka is starting to believe the end could be in sight.
Now that there's actual walls in there and there's like a roof and you can get a sense of the height of the rooms and kind of the actual space you've got to play with, we both agree we wanted everything to be kind of minimalistic, you know, and not an awful lot of clutter.
But on the outside of the house, there are still design problems to be solved.
The soffit cladding for the section all around the house that's going to house the downlighters, it's a huge visual feature on the house and something that I've given so much thought about. The canopy catches your eye when you're inside, but before you see the underside of the canopy, the soffit, you see these beautiful Danish window frames we've got that are a Scandinavian pine. Hopefully, it's going to have the desired effect.
For Riikka, the seemingly effortless, simple Scandinavian home she dreams of is a far cry from her current digs.
We've done nothing here. The only thing that's ours is the rug. This is not how I fathomed my house to look.
Jason and Riikka have been really in the trenches with their build. They've been struggling hard and having some real setbacks along the way. But I want to talk about how we can reanimate this process, inspire them again about architecture.
I believe that Scandinavian design is not something you can buy or copy from a show home. It's about a culture and a way of living. So I've brought Jason and Riikka to Denmark to try to find some real examples of what I think they mean by Scandinavian design. 1 hour from Copenhagen, amongst lakes and forests, I've uncovered some stunning examples of low-cost summer houses. we're most used, perhaps, to seeing Scandinavian design in style magazines and in fancy, glossy photos. But I think it's in a birch forest where you're going to understand best where the roots of Scandinavian design really are.
Wow, look.
That is stunning.
It's a lovely little clearing, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
a wonderful setting for a house. The whole Scandinavian design ethos is based on a relationship with nature. You've got that wall of glass, and you can just see how they live continuously with this beautiful landscape. It's like living in the forest. And there's something very powerful about that. It's a rainy day to see a summer house, so I want to go and take you close to the building to show you something else.
Okay.
This is a summer house designed by Danish architect Michael Christensen. At 64 square metres, it's a small building. But by extending a canopy above the terrace, it increases the footprint and provides shelter from rain or shade from the sun. This overhang is rather beautifully done, and shading a fully glazed facade is a good thing to do for solar gain, for the views, for transparency, and you're doing that. This achieves a lot with very little. These timber battens and a plastic roof. It's very beautiful, actually, and it couldn't be simpler.
It's the sort of thing you would never think of doing in a million years, but to actually see it up there, it's an amazing effect.
And it completely fits this landscape.
You're just surrounded by wood, by one material. It's very, very powerful. Scandinavian style tends to use natural materials and colours, which makes modern spaces feel homely. Here there are low-cost pine floors, walls and ceilings are painted white, and simple white furnishings make it look bright and modern. It also importantly doesn't detract from the landscape beyond, which remains the focal point. Deeper into the birch forest is another summer house. Mikael Bogue and his wife Sarah Martinson built and designed Barnhouse Cabin as a retreat. The total cost was £67,000. The red cedar cladding and industrial metal roof makes an unfussy, carefully composed building, a theme that's continued inside. So this is a super simple, open, airy, calm space. For me, this is what I mean by Scandinavian interior. Is it what you mean by Scandinavian interior?
Uncluttered, very simple, nowhere really for dust to gather.
But the thing that for me is most important about this interior is the way the outside is part of the interior. The forest here. I mean, it's a fantastic view, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. It's not a very big building, but you get a huge feeling of space inside. It's absolutely fantastic.
And that feeling of space is no coincidence. It's down to the right choice of materials. It's timber, it's glass, there's the steel, and that's about it. Jason and Riikka have made their home more open plan. This house defines areas subtly. I love this little sort of snug area. Just shows what you can do with furniture. And even though it's open plan, you've definitely got a defined living room. You're thinking about opening up your interior more, aren't you? And I think you can do a lot with what you choose to put in it to create spaces, not just with walls.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that we've made the decision of getting rid of the wall between the kitchen and the living space, it all flows nicely from one space to the other.
The natural landscape outside is reflected inside by using natural materials for furnishings. Here, oak floors are matched with pale wooden furniture. Scandinavian designers then accessorise with earthy tones, greys, blues and browns. The result is beautifully tuned, feels lived in, and is not expensive. One of the things people think about Scandinavian design is it's all about modern pieces, but I love this old radio and the upcycled furniture in the sense that sort of old wine crates might be used as bookshelves, and even the art, which is just a kind of collage of old pieces of timber from the designer's own work. Everything here has a story to do with the family who lives here, and that is what gives it a sense of homeliness. There are other great low-cost ideas on show. This flat-pack sideboard has been upholstered in second-hand fabrics. And in the bathroom, the cabinet has been made from offcuts left from the kitchen cupboards. If you took one thing away from seeing an interior like this, it's that sense that it's about things you can see and identify what they are. It's colours that are calm and muted. Very few materials, usually natural materials, which is what Scandinavian design achieves so often. Every Scandinavian country has a great design heritage. But it was the Danes who have perhaps become best known across the world as pioneers of mid-century modern furniture. On the outskirts of Copenhagen is an enormous warehouse filled with world-renowned Danish classics. I think it's quite amazing to see all this stuff just in one place. It's like sort of Indiana Jones or something,
Yeah.
you know, the big cave of stuff. I want to take Riikka on a trip down memory lane.
Look, there's a locky.
I remember that from your mum's flat. Yeah.
And show them how they could use furniture to really bring their open-plan space to life. I really wanted to bring you to a shop and not a museum, because for me, design isn't about something that should be on a plinth and never used. It's about the democracy of this kind of design, and modernism was for the people.
I love this chair. This chair is just so cool.
This is such a wonderful piece, isn't it? This famous Arne Jacobsen chair must be one of the most imitated chairs in the history of design. But there's nothing like the classic.
It's very cool.
When I was a kid in the 70s, some of the designs of some of the chairs I've seen here were all the rage, and they were called G-Plan.
G-Plan, of course, was a direct copy of Danish design.
Oh, really?
You know, there were a series of companies in Britain in the 50s and 60s which copied the Danish design coming out in the 40s and 50s. We're really here at the kind of wellspring of that post-war design ethos. Modern pieces like these have characteristic lightweight, sweeping shapes. Quality materials such as walnut, rosewood and teak were then finished in fabrics inspired by colours found in nature. Some of my favourite pieces are these beautiful dining chairs designed by Hans Wegener. I think one of the things we learn from modernist furniture is how deployable and flexible it can be. I mean, this kind of furniture obviously is beautifully designed to fold and configure itself differently, but you could do the same thing with a couple of trestles and a beautiful piece of timber on the top. Consider investing in a design classic that could define a room, rather than filling spaces with a generic suite of furniture. There's one piece I really wanted to show you. This beautiful sofa, which is an absolute Danish classic.
I've never seen this before. And it's
Have you not?
gorgeous.
So this is by a designer called Boje Morgensen, and he designed this in 1945. So can you imagine? The war's just finished, the occupation of Denmark has just ended. This piece is, in a way, for me, like somebody imagining a new kind of lifestyle, a new way of living. It's about relaxing, it's about lounging. It feels kind of quite private and intimate if there's two of you.
It's very cosy.
Yeah, isn't it?
I've just noticed how that works.
Yeah, isn't this great? More comfy seats, Riikka.
Oh, that's so cool. I've got to test this. This is so
How
cool.
good is that?
It's playful. I love this sofa. I really hope this trip to Denmark has crystallised some broader ideas for Jason and Riikka that can influence their new home.
Up until now, it's all been about building and it's all been about construction, but now we're at the point where we have to think about what we're going to put in the house.
Hopefully these houses and furnishings have given them a big push in the right direction. But this build is in a critical stage. We need to help them bring together some of these big ideas and ensure they make it into the final design.
Kieran has really raised the bar with this one and shown Jason and Riikka some extraordinary Scandinavian furniture and really got them to think about how they're going to use the house, how they're going to live in it. The critical thing for me now is to translate that into a reality that's affordable and achievable.
Piers must come up with one final idea that makes the most of this space.
And this feels ready for furniture, almost.
Indeed.
In an ideal world. What else would you do in here?
What I don't want is the conventional lounge setup where you've got a sofa and a coffee table and then the television is the focal point of the room. I don't want that. So any suggestions that I can get that gets us away from that are very welcome.
Adding a set of sofas and chairs into this space that are focused on a television would quickly shift the focal point away from the view.
I wonder about building something very low that came along here, possibly turn the corner there, but allowed you to sit over here and look at the view that way and allowed the TV not to dominate the wall.
Yeah.
I like that idea a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Piers wants to use the sweeping shapes Jason and Riikka loved in Denmark. A simple platform made out of light-coloured timber could be done for as little as £200 of materials.
I don't think it can just be a regular corner thing. It's got to be a bit more...
It's much more
than
interesting
that.
if it's a little, yeah.
And it's
absolutely.
more ambiguous in that, you know, two people can sit there, one person can sit there and look at the view that way. And then I think you use colour for the cushions, which could be really fun.
In Copenhagen, what I really liked in there was that lots of the colours that they had used were very sort of earthy colours.
Yeah.
And I thought in that particular environment was very nice.
And I think this will look better than a £3,500 sofa. This house has a fantastic site, and it's really taken its toll on Jason and Riikka. There have been a number of setbacks. To come here today and finally see something close to a finished building is brilliant.
This project has pushed Jason to the absolute limit. Now, with his eye on the finish line, he must stay calm for one final push.
Right. This is deadly serious.
It's a big floor.
Jason has spent £6,000 on his floor. 136 square metres of tiles need to be laid through the entire building.
Has to be millimetre perfect. Right.
The problem is you've got a 10-metre line running right down the whole length of the building. If it bends slightly, you'll see it a mile away.
The effect of these tiles is critical to the final finish.
We're about a millimetre or so out on that tile.
Now you've gone about 4 mil to the right.
Some gentle persuasion is needed to get the lines just so.
2, 3.
And again.
2, 3.
One more, I'd say.
2, 3.
Oh, that's better.
The actual building is coming together really quickly now. It's got to be right, so if we need to go the extra mile, then we will.
Jason has strived for perfection, but will the result meet his exacting standards?
Oh, the whole thing went an awful lot then.
From the very beginning, this build has taken a huge toll on the couple. And after 3 years of planning, then 3 long years of building, it's taken a very long time too. This has to have been one of the longest running and most ambitious builds we've ever featured. It's almost broken, Jason and Riikka. And at times it looked like it might never be finished. Today we're back to see what the final house looks like and to find out how much it cost. After so much debate over how the house sits on the site...
Hi Jason, hi Riikka.
...and what tricks are used to get you in the door, I'm keen to see how it feels to arrive at their home today. We're so excited to be here after all this time.
And we're also very excited to be here.
Have you solved this issue of how to arrive at your house in a beautiful, elegant, lovely way?
I just used to see this as the back gate to the house, really. But now this is the main entrance to the house. This is where the journey begins.
Yeah, I think we need to cross over your threshold and have a look.
Great, let's go.
The existing landscaping creates a sense of anticipation for what's to come. For Jason, it's a well-trodden path. I mean, Jason, how many times do you think you've been up and down these?
Do you know, conservative estimate, I'd say about 1,000 at least.
More.
As you reach the top, the building reveals itself. They've ended up with a simple, understated modern pavilion. It's quite subtle, isn't it?
Really subtle. We can see that it doesn't have the big orange wall and glass box, which felt like they were things that you needed to add to make it interesting. But actually, the house is something that didn't need to be made interesting because, of course, it's all about this, isn't it?
All those years ago when we first made that journey up those steps, we just fell in love with this plot. It just had a magic feeling to us.
Old stone unearthed through the build has been carefully reworked and links the site's past with the present. I love the way that this stone feels like it's part of the retaining wall, the heavy thing on the hillside anchoring the building. And then over here we've got the render, this sharp, modern material, which is so crisp, frames the view, of course, and makes it feel a bit more like that kind of Scandinavian modern feeling that I know you were interested in. I can imagine when the landscaping is grown up, this is a building that will almost disappear. It really will feel part of its site.
Today, this is almost the colour of the sky. And it's hard to tell where the building stops and the sky begins.
The simplified outside, with its mix of white render and stonework, helps the building feel perfectly at home in this landscape.
I can't wait to go in.
But it's the inside and its relationship with that view that we are desperate to see.
This is amazing.
It's just fantastic. This whole space just feels so open and generous and big. Walls intended to divide off the kitchen have gone, allowing the view to be the focal point of the whole building.
We felt that we needed to partition off the kitchen because somehow in our minds that wasn't part of the living space.
Then Piers didn't agree at all.
To have had a wall there would have been terrible.
It would have been.
You were absolutely right.
Well, I think it's partly that cooking is a sociable activity, and
Yes.
standing here, cooking, talking to people and looking at the view, it's like,
Exactly.
why wouldn't you do that?
All areas feel connected thanks to their material choices and Jason's incredible attention to detail. The kitchen units match the colour of the walls, and the wood grain in the worktops runs the same way as the tiles.
But if you'd had this kitchen wall here, you wouldn't have been able to see this brilliant view. This was a big chunk of your budget.
Huge chunk, yeah.
And one stage, it looked like they weren't going to fit at all.
I'll never forget that moment.
It was horrific. When we fitted the first frame, the finish on the edge of the frame was different to what I was expecting, and to be fair, what my architect was expecting as well.
The
It
only
was
stage
okay.
of the build that I burst into tears.
Jason and Riikka managed to work through the devastating problems with the windows, and the payoff today is extraordinary.
A lot of people will build a house for £100,000 and spend £5,000 on their windows and £25,000 on their kitchen, but you've probably spent about £5,000 on your kitchen and £20,000 on your windows, which is the right way round. Can you show us how they open?
Yeah, sure. So it's a handle either side.
Designing a modern home with windows that don't open is something Piers and I have challenged since day one. It may sound simple, but it radically improves the experience of living in this home and extends the living spaces outside. I really enjoy this overhang and how it's all coming together. We saw in Denmark at the summer house the way an overhang can create a kind of inhabitable edge to the building.
I was so keen to ensure that as you look out of the window through these beautiful frames, the soffit continued that same theme.
It's really interesting, Jason, to hear you talk like a designer. They're tiny details, but most people wouldn't be considering the relationship of this soffit to the window frames.
I think it's kind of job done. You're trading stories about details with Piers. You're a designer as well as somebody who makes things, and you should be really proud of that.
Thanks very much.
A simple, low bench made out of a couple of big sheets of plywood fills the space. It's adaptable and simple.
It's interesting that people think about architecture and furniture as separate things, but actually they're all part of the same thing.
Custom-made furniture is a really good way of making the most out of every inch of your home.
Lots of people will design a house, design a building, and then go and buy furniture. But actually getting a piece of furniture made needn't be expensive.
It's a great place to relax in the view. And in the centre of the room, Riikka has allowed herself one statement Scandi design piece.
Some things were non-negotiable.
They go and sit in it.
You forget completely that this is an unbelievably low-cost house that was made for very little money, all by you, Jason, and to this very high level. I mean, it's really exciting for us to find a low-cost house that lives up to the highest expectations of design and could be in a design magazine tomorrow with no problem at all. The open plan space is a triumph. Somehow Jason has found the time and energy to apply a high-end finish to every part. The tiled floor sweeps through, making the whole space feel bigger. It leads the eye through the two guest bedrooms, the master bedroom with walk-in wardrobe and the generously proportioned wet room. Jason chose tiles, not the cladding from the fish market, but he did use it in the kitchen.
It works really well, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it was an absolutely perfect fit for the back of the unit. Something like that in another material would have cost a fortune because it's such a long expanse.
The real design trick, though, having removed that dividing wall, is in disguising this kitchen so it doesn't dominate the room.
Although your units are off the peg, what works so well here is the way you've considered how they're going to work in this space. The fronts have no handles, which is great because, of course, they would be clutter. These wall units feel like a beautiful bit of furniture just put on the wall. I love the way it's so intentional that the top becomes the window sill. And there's a beautiful solid bit of slate that you've let in that's the same height as the worktop and the window frame. I mean, it's so considered, so deliberate, and so well judged. We, as professional designers and architects, struggle to make things this consistent sometimes. But here you are, building the house and designing it on the hoof, and yet everything looks so deliberate.
Great. Thanks very much.
This house is testament to Jason's countless hours of work, and even when apart, the emotional support they've given each other. You've both made quite a lot of sacrifices to make this project happen.
Neither of us understood the enormity of the task ahead. We've lived in, rented accommodation for the last 18 to 24 months, really spent most of the time apart, but I am very, very much looking forward to living like other married people live.
Yeah.
Wake up in the morning in the same bed and have breakfast together and go to work and things like that, so I really look forward to that.
This is so inspiring for self-builders in so many ways. It isn't just a little bit of Scandinavian design applied to an English house. This really is full of light, full of space, full of quality, full of joy and full of life. And the result is extraordinary.
So, after such an incredible investment physically and emotionally, financially, what has this dream home by the sea actually cost? Tell me how much you have budgeted to make this building and how much you've spent in the end.
We got a staged mortgage for £100,000. We are 96% complete on the building, and the mortgage currently sits at £92,000.
That's amazing. That is amazing. So it really is a £100,000 house.
It is, yeah.
That's really astonishing.
We would not be able to live in this kind of a house. We would not be able to go and buy a house of this calibre ever, with the financial resources that we have.
All the investment is your time, really.
Really, it is, yeah.
You'll never get this level of finish if you don't do it yourself. He's been eating and drinking and sleeping this project for so many years. His mind is all the time going, I can't afford to do that, but I want that. How can I get round that? How can I get round that in a cheaper manner?
I think what this pair have managed to build for their £100,000 really pushes the boundaries of what's possible to achieve with low-cost housing. I love this opening door and I love this space. For Jason and Riikka, this is kind of the realisation of an extraordinary dream. For Jason, it was about building a house with his own hands, which he's remarkably achieved. And for Riikka, it was about creating a space and an atmosphere that spoke of where she came from and about Scandinavian design values and lifestyles. I think what they've pulled off is an extraordinary achievement, and one that's a lesson to all self-builders. Yes, they've made extraordinary sacrifices and worked extraordinarily hard, but it's in the design and the choices they've made where the real genius of this project lies. Next time, we help Neil and Amanda
This would be my perfect home.
attempt a very different house
Taller, taller, taller.
on a tiny budget.
Ours is like the poor man's version of this.
But will endless delays
We've not even started. Not even dug a hole.
and the stress of the build
The other day I screamed at Neil and said, I wish I could never started this.
derail their plans?
I think we've just got to start again. I think they can't build this. We can't let them.